Okay, let us continue. There are 4 techniques of equity valuation or share valuation. Let me write down the 4 techniques of equity valuation. Okay, do keep in mind, I keep use the words equity valuation and share valuation interchangeably. Yeah, sometimes I use the word share valuation, sometimes I use the word equity valuation. It refers to the same thing. Yeah? The textbook use equity valuation, but out of habit I use share valuation. Yeah? I'm more comfortable with the term share valuation. Okay, the 4 techniques are, one is called present value. Present value method. The second one is constant growth. Constant growth. The third method is valuation with temporary supernormal growth. Valuation with temporary supernormal growth. And the last one is relative valuation technique. Actually, the first 3 techniques, these 3 techniques is generally called as discounted cash flow technique, or in short form DCF. So this is a discounted cash flow techniques. When people say discounted cash flow techniques, it refers to these 3 techniques: present value, constant growth, and valuation with temporary supernormal growth. Okay, let's take a look at the example of the first technique, present value. Okay, you turn to page 255 of your book. 255. There's no example. There's no example of present value method or present value technique, but I can give you an example. Just let's say, for example, you are thinking of buying a stock. So can I erase this? Okay. Let's say, for example, you are thinking of buying a stock at a price. You are thinking of buying a stock, and this stock is expected to pay a dividend of 20 cents in year 1, 22 cents in year 2, and 15 cents in year 3. Okay, so 21 cents in year 1, 22 cents in year 2, and 15 cents in year 3. Okay, at the end of the 3rd year, you expect to be able to sell back the stock at, let's say, for example, 150. Yeah? So the selling price after 3 years, after keeping the stock for 3 years, you expect to be able to sell back the stock at 150. 1 ringgit 50 cents. And let's say if your required rate of return is 8%, yeah, required rate of return, we use I. I stand for interest, or K. Yeah, sometimes we use I, sometimes we use K. So both refers to the required rate of return. Let's say the required rate of return is 8%. Okay, now we can calculate the intrinsic value of the stock using this formula, the intrinsic value of the stock, PO, is equal to D1 PVRF I1 plus D2 PVRF I2 plus D3 PVRF I3 plus SP3 PVRF I3. Okay, let me show you how to use the financial calculator to calculate the intrinsic value of the stock. So D1 is 20 cents, PVRF 8% 1 plus 22 cents, PVRF 8% 2 plus 15 cents, PVRF 8% 3 plus SP3 PVRF 8% 3. Okay. First, as always, you must clear your previous work from your financial calculator. By the way, we are using BA2 Plus Texas Instruments. Financial calculator BA2 Plus Texas Instruments. Okay. First, you need to calculate. You need to clear your previous work by pushing second clear work, second quit button, and then at CF0, you just leave it as it is, CF0, and push enter. Then push the downward arrow. Push the downward arrow. And for C1, you put D1. D1 is 20 cents. 0.20, enter, and push arrow button downward. Okay. Then F1, F stands for frequency. So frequency by default is 1. So here is only one dividend payment of 20 cents. So just push enter, and then next you push the arrow button downward again, and at C2 key in D2. D2 is 0.22. 0.22, then push enter, and arrow button again, downward arrow button, and frequency is 1, push enter, and then push enter again, and at C3, this is a bit tricky. At C3 here we have to add D3 and SP3. Why? Because they have, these two figures have the same interest factor. So D3 plus SP3, D3 is 15 cents and SP3 is 150. So 15 cents plus 150 is 165. So you key in 165, 1.65, push enter. 165, push enter, then push downward button again. Frequency is also 1, push enter, and then you calculate, and then you push NPV button. NPV I, you key in your required rate of return of 8%. So key in 8 and enter. After that, you push NPV, and then you push NPV, and then you NPV, arrow down, NPV, and then you push compute. Then what do you have? 1.68. 1.6836. 1.6836, or if you round off, it becomes 1.68. 1.68. So this is the intrinsic value of the stock. This is the intrinsic value of the stock. What does the intrinsic value of 168 means? It means that if you want to buy this particular share or this particular stock, so this is the price that you are willing to pay. If the market price of this stock is higher than 168, so the stock is overvalued, so don't buy. On the other hand, if the price of the stock is lower than this intrinsic value, then the stock is undervalued and you should buy. Okay, so this is the first technique, of share valuation or equity valuation. Okay, let us go through the second technique of share valuation. The second technique of share valuation is constant growth model. The second technique of share valuation is constant growth model, in which the formula for constant growth model is PO is equal to D1 over K minus G, or DO 1 plus G over K minus G, in which PO as usual is the intrinsic value of the stock, D1 is dividend in year 1, G is dividend's growth rate. This is dividend growth rate. K is your required rate of return. K is your required rate of return. Okay. What else? One is number one. PO is the intrinsic value of the stock. Yeah. PO is the intrinsic value of the stock. Okay, let's take a look at the example. The example. Let's take a look at the example on page 256 of your textbook. Yeah, page 256 of your textbook. The formula is given in equation 8.3. Equation 8.3. But the textbook use VO instead of PO. It refers to the same thing. VO, PO does not matter, but as long as you know that it refers to the intrinsic value of the stock. The textbook use V for value. Okay, so VO is equal to D1 over K minus G. Okay, when you come across a question during a test or final exam, you are usually given the information on dividend. Yeah? You are usually given the information on dividend. Okay, so we need to differentiate between DO and D1. We need to differentiate between DO and D1. Okay, how do you differentiate DO and D1? DO is the dividend that has been paid or is being paid. Dividend that has been paid or is being paid. Has been paid, telah dibayar. Is being paid, sedang dibayar. Okay. D1 is the dividend that will be paid. Yang akan dibayar. So it means that the company has not paid the dividend yet. Yang akan dibayar. Okay. So you look at the sentence structure. From the sentence structure, you can know whether they are talking about DO or D1. Let's say, for example, the sentence tell you something like this. Last year, the company paid dividend of 10 cents. That would be DO because last year. Or a sentence like this. The most recent dividend was 10 cents. So that is DO. If the sentence reads like this, the company is expected to pay. Expected, so that would be D1 because expected to pay. Dijangka, expected to pay, so that would be D1. If the sentence like the company is paying a dividend off. So is paying a dividend off, that is DO. Is paying, is being paid means sekarang kan? Means that is also DO. Sometimes, and when we discuss past semesters question, we will come across this type of question. Sometimes they don't give you the information on dividend directly. If they directly give you the information on dividend, that's be very easy. Just plug in the numbers. Sometimes the information on dividend is hidden. They give you the dividend payout ratio, and then some other information, and then you have to calculate the dividend. So if you are given the dividend payout ratio, and then from the dividend payout ratio you got to calculate dividend, so that dividend is DO. So dividend that we calculate from the dividend payout ratio would be DO. We will take a look at this example when we discuss past semesters question. Okay. So now let's take a look at the on page 256. Page 257. Sorry, page 257. Let us read this. For example, on the top of page 257. For example, imagine that you are trying to value Brinker International Incorporated, and you conclude that it will have 3.05 of cash flow next year that will be available for the shareholder. So this sentence is a bit tricky because they don't say directly they will pay a dividend of $3.05. The question says that you conclude that it will have $3.05 of cash flow next year that will be available for the shareholders. Simply said, the dividend that the company is going to pay is $3.05. So they can easily say that dividend that the company is expected to pay is $3.05. Page 357 on top, on top of the page 300. Okay, the cost of equity is 10%. So when they say the cost of equity, it refers to K or I, your required rate of return, K or I, and the expected growth rate in the future is 3.3%. So all the informations that you need are given here. I would recommend that whenever you read a question, you take out the information and rewrite it back so that you extract the information given in the question, rewrite it back so that it's easy for you to use the information. So here, the first information is D1. D1 is $3.05. K or I is 10%. K and I is 10%. So in order for us to use the formula or constant growth model, we need to know G or dividends growth rate. So here they say that the expected growth rate in the future is 3.3%. So that would be I lah. That would be G. 0.033. That is 3.3%. So PO is D1 over K minus G. 3.05 over K is 0.10 minus 0.033. 0.033, and you have the answer of $45, is it? So you get the answer of $45. Okay, so that's how you calculate the intrinsic value of the stock using the constant growth model. This textbook mentions about no growth model on page 259. I did not include no growth model in our 4 techniques of share valuation because no growth means there is no growth in dividends. It means that you use constant growth except G is 0. That's it. So it becomes a no growth model. Okay? So no growth model is nothing more than a constant growth except that K minus G and G is 0. So when G is 0, there's no growth. So that becomes a no growth model. So I don't include no growth model in our 4 techniques of share valuation because no growth model is essentially a constant growth model, and you put growth as 0. It becomes a no growth model. Okay. The third technique, of constant share valuation is called valuation with temporary supernormal growth. In your notes, I wrote as valuation with temporary supernormal growth. In fact, in the previous publication, the previous edition of this textbook, 10th edition, they still use the term valuation with temporary supernormal growth. But now they changed the term. So probably it does not matter because as long as you can calculate the intrinsic value, whatever term that they use, it does not matter. But if you come across multi-stage or 2-stage growth assumption on page 260, multi-stage or 2-stage growth assumption, that refers to valuation with temporary supernormal growth. So it refers to valuation with temporary supernormal growth. Okay. As the name suggests, valuation with temporary supernormal growth. What are the characteristics that later on when you attempt test questions or final exam questions, whenever you come across topics of share valuation, when you read the question, your mind will automatically think, what are, out of the 4 techniques of share valuation, which technique that I'm going to use? Your brain will automatically think of this 4 techniques. So I will give you hints on how to identify which technique to use. Okay? Of course, if you know the dividend payment, the next period's dividend payment, and then future selling price, that would be obviously present value. If there's only one growth and the growth is constant, one dividend growth and the growth is constant, that would be constant growth model. Valuation with temporary supernormal growth or multi-stage growth assumption is a bit more complicated. So this is out of 4 techniques, this one is the more tricky, the most tricky technique out of these 4. So you have to listen carefully, and if you do not understand for the first time on this technique, don't worry because you are normal students. If you can understand for the first time this technique, you are a brilliant student. You are a brilliant student. So listen carefully. Before that, how do we know that we are going to use this technique? The hint is that there would be more than one growth. There would be more than one growth. There are probably 2 growths or 3 growths. I mean dividend growth. There's probably 2 or 3 dividend growth at different rates. Different rates of growth. Okay, that is one thing. The second, so let me write it down just in case you need to know. What are the characteristics of multi-stage characteristics of multi-stage valuation, multi-stage valuation technique. One is more than one growth. More than one growth. I mean more than one. When I say more than one growth, it means that we have several rate of growth. Several rates of growth. That is one thing. The second characteristic of multi-stage technique is the last growth. Let's say we have 3 growth. The last growth will be constant. So the final growth is constant. Okay, the final growth is constant. So these are the things that. So when we use multi-stage growth valuation technique, actually we are combining the first 2 techniques of share valuation, the present value and the constant growth. So this is actually a combination of these 2 techniques. To give you a better understanding of this thing, let's take a look at the example on page 261, Exhibit 8.4. Exhibit 8.4. Okay, here we examine Cisco system. This is the name of the company, Cisco. In 2000. Assume that CSCO had a 53% dividend in 2000. So this 53 cent, is that D1 or DO? DO. So 53 cents is DO. DO is 53 cents. DO is 53 cents. Okay. Even though 53 cents was actually CS. Okay. Imagine that you thought that CSCO would grow their dividends per share at 20% per year for 5 years. Okay. And then growth would subside. Subside means slow down, berkurangan. Subside to 5%, and that would be their long-term growth. Oh, here we are a bit lucky because there's only 2 growth, so it's easy. Sometimes in the exam, in the final exam, they give you up to 3 different growth. 4 different growth. From year 1 to year 3, 1 growth. From year 4 to year 5, another growth. For year 6 to year 7, another growth. Year 8 onwards, another growth. So the principle is very much similar, except that you have to calculate thing, and you have to be very careful because for each different growth, you have to later on when we discuss past semesters question, I think I can explain better. But this example is a very simplified example, so this is not a difficult thing to do. We have only 2 growth here. We have only 2 growth. So you label it as G1 and G2. G1 and G2. G1 and G2. Okay. So G1. Okay, G1 is 20% from year 1 to year 5. So G1 is 20% or 0.20 from year 1 to year 5. 20%. And then G2 is 5%, right? 5% year 6 onwards, from year 6 till the end of time, sampai bila-bila, it will grow at the rate of 6%. Okay. So that would be the two-stage growth, or they call it two-stage, means there are two different rate of growth. So, without looking at this example, let us try to do this question, and then we compare whether we get the same answer as they get here. Okay. And what is the required rate of return? Is 12%, because the cost of equity is 12%, so that would be your required rate of return. K or I is equal to 12%. Okay, K or I is equal to 12%. Okay, let me write down the formula first, and then we will solve this problem. PO is equal to D1 P via F I1 plus D2 P via F I2 plus D3 P via F I3 plus D4 P via F I4 plus D5 P via F I5 plus SP5 P via F I5. Okay. Just copy it down. If you do not understand, never mind, because I will explain to you how we come up with this formula. Okay. So now, all you need to do is to calculate all these unknown variables, and then including the SPI, SSP5, and then after that you can easily solve the problem or the equation. Okay, first is we are given D0 or DO. DO is called D0 or DO. DO okay, let us start with D0. Okay, D0 is 53 cents, right? Okay, D0 is 0.53 or 53 cents. 53 cents. We have to calculate D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5. And we are given